Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. And we're back for another weekly recap of NFL football. Thanksgiving weekend, week 12 has come and gone, and we have a full slate of games, 16 big ones, a lot of exciting games, some not so exciting, and some fun narratives developing here as the season chugs along. So, Tim, are you ready to go?
Let's run it.
Let's do it. And it's always a good week when we get to start by covering the Green Bay Packers when they took on the Detroit Lions. And Tim,
That was a good game.
I told you, I tried to tell y'all that the Packers would come out victorious, and for the second consecutive week, they did.
Yeah.
With a lot of guys on the injury report, we knew that was a concern. Didn't matter, a 29-22 victory. Although the game wasn't nearly as close as the score indicates, the Lions kind of tacked on that late touchdown at the end. The Packers jumped out to 20 points in the first quarter, and it was like, oh my goodness, where's this Packers offense coming from? And a defensive touchdown, a scoop and score by Jonathan Owens, and he was all over the place. But the main story, Jordan Love, and I'm just gonna get right into it. He looks fantastic.
Yeah.
22 of 32, 268, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And, when we do these notes, I typically include the QBR, and which is different from quarterback rating because, I have had some people yell at me about that. The QBR has not been kind to Jordan Love this season, but it gave it a 90.6 out of 100, and he played like it. He was making throws all over the field. He hit the open man. He fitted into tight windows. The first touchdown to Jaden Reed was a bullet where Christian Watson ran the wrong route, but still able to fit it in between two guys. Jordan Love just keeps getting better and better. He's looked fantastic over the past month of football. He's on the ascension, as are these Packers. And the Packers in general, 5-6, they doubled their playoff chances. It was at 23% around there before the Lions game. They beat the Lions. It jumps to about 38. But the final game of the week was the kicker, where the Vikings lost to the Bears somehow. More on that later. The Packers playoff chances now sit at 50% at 5-6 in the 8th seed. And you get Kansas City coming up. And after that, a really easy schedule. We think in playoffs? I know I am.
I mean, it's certainly possible, especially, I mean, they're hitting their stride at the right time. And obviously you see this game, it was pretty much a story of a lot of things falling into place at the right time. I mean, you obviously talk about the one route for Christian Watson where he ran the wrong route. Obviously, not a highlight I'm sure he'll want to see, but he finally got back in essentially the good graces of this offense, going for 5 receptions for 94 yards and a touchdown. So to get him more involved, obviously, it increases your offensive firepower by a lot. And as you said, Jordan Love looked very, very good. He took a Lions defense that has been, pretty up and down, but also has had some great performances, and really, really diced them apart throughout the game. So on the offensive side of the ball, especially the Packers getting off to a fast start, because we've talked about throughout the season, they have been really known for their slow starts. So for them to get that many points in the first quarter and establish themselves, really punch the Lions in the mouth was crucial in this one.
It absolutely was. Can't give Jordan Love all the credit and that offense, although, don't get me wrong, I want to. I will talk about this young receiver room for a minute. Christian Watson, that first play, the first big 50-yard chunk play, that was huge to get him going, and finding him in the end zone was awesome. Romeo Doubs has also been really dependable, but it's Jaden Reed that's really stepped up and become
Really
the
has.
alpha receiver in this offense. Like, he has been Jordan Love's go-to guy. And although he didn't play last Thursday, Dontavion Wicks has been a weapon. So if you think about that, like, you throw in Luke Musgrave, who may not come back this season, but he's still really, really good. And Tucker Kraft, who's also serviceable. You have a litany of options at the receiver and the tight end position that Jordan Love has to throw to. So, I mean, that's always nice. I think, however, another huge factor was the pressure that the defense was able to consistently put on Jared Goff. The last time Rashawn Gary played at Ford Field, he tore his ACL. This game, he was in Jared Goff's soul with 3 sacks and a pair of forced fumbles. Got the game ball and was very emotional about it. He really needs to stop crying in front of these guys. Him as well as Jordan Love deserved the turkey leg, but somehow Greg Olsen mukbanged it during the third quarter and absolutely tore that thing apart. So no turkey for Jordan Love, even though everybody else got one. When Dak Prescott and Brock Purdy are tearing open turkey, where in the world is Jordan Love's? But Packers Twitter is like drilled that over the head. So that's all I'm gonna say about it. I'm about over it. It's just something worth mentioning. But hey, that's all I got. I'm good. Oh geez. I'm gonna try not to overreact to get through a Packers segment without saying anything asinine like Jordan Love is the best quarterback in the NFC North, and it's not a debate anymore. So
Oh dear.
I don't know why you're face palming. Jared Goff looks terrible. Josh Dobbs threw 4 interceptions. Justin Fields sucks. Jordan Love looks good. He's the best in the division. What about that is so crazy?
Jared Goff hasn't even played that bad all season. Yes, granted, he did not look very good
last
game.
The past few weeks.
That doesn't automatically make him, a bad quarterback. Just like when Jordan Love has had his bad weeks, that didn't make Jordan Love,
doesn't make him a bad quarterback. No, not at all.
So where has Jared Goff taken his team? Where has Jordan Love taken his team thus far? It's all recency bias. You're basing it off of the recency of this most recent game.
That's fine.
And I'm not saying you're wrong to, because obviously we're living in the present day right now. But
I mean,
it's still the Packers fan and you talking, not the sports analyst and you talking, and I realize that.
I don't know about all that noise, but there's certainly an argument to be made. I don't think there's an argument for Love over Dobbs and Fields. I think that's pretty set in stone, at least now, with the ascension of Jordan Love. But
we'll get into more of some of the Dobbs stuff later with the Bears Vikings game, because I definitely have some opinions on that. But overall in this one, the last couple of things I'd have to say is the one thing that the Packers could definitely stand to improve on is to figure out that backfield in the running game. Obviously without Aaron Jones, it's going to be difficult, but the combination of offensive line and trying to get more out of the running game, obviously they didn't need in this one. I have a feeling they will need to be a little bit more balanced in some other games. So we'll see how that goes for them going forward.
It's going to help if we get Aaron Jones back. AJ Dillon has been serviceable, like he has gotten better. Like if you want to talk about guys who have gotten better as the season's gone along,
he's really struggled to start the season.
Absolutely. But hey, if you're a Packers fan, and there are a lot of us out there that are now becoming increasingly more and more optimistic about the season. And I'm just saying, hey, if Jordan Love takes this Green Bay Packers team to the playoffs in his first year as a starter, something that Favre and Rodgers haven't done, we're going to have some interesting conversations. But we're also going to move on where, the Green Bay Packers will take on and defeat Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in front of the entire country on Sunday Night Football. I've been right the past 2 weeks. Let's make it a third. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions at 8-3, still in firm control of the NFC North, go to New Orleans to take on the Saints. So the second Thanksgiving game was not nearly as entertaining as the first, where
blowout.
The Dallas Cowboys took the Washington Commanders behind the shed and did literally whatever they wanted to them. 45-10. Dak Prescott dominates again with 331 yards and 4 touchdowns. I mean, the Dak slander around these parts, not our parts, but just like the football community in general.
Yeah.
It's always magnified because Cowboys, but it's really hard to say anything negative when he keeps stringing together these performances.
He's looked so solid lately.
Absolutely.
He has that offense completely clicking.
Deron Bland set an NFL record with his 5th pick 6 of the
How
season.
Did it just stop throwing at him?
I think, but then again, it's Sam Howell. And
you can't really tell Sam Howell to not throw somewhere. He's going to throw everywhere.
Yeah, Sam Howell and throwing go together. So is Sam Howell and throwing interceptions. Because the Commanders can't run the ball to save their life. Go chuck it all over the yard, And I think it's the same darn narrative for the Cowboys. They can beat up on the bad teams, but when they play the good teams,
we see it time and time again.
Yeah, it's a tale as old as time. I mean, they are the Miami Dolphins of the NFC, and vice versa. And that's really the only question that it's like, okay, we know you can beat the bad teams, but when you
Yeah.
go play like the
Now
Philadelphias of the
do
world,
this again against a good team, and then
like
we'll start talking about Dallas being serious. Yeah.
exactly. And the Commanders, they still need to find out whether Sam Howell's the guy. I mean, it's maybe more yes than no, but like, do we
Mhm.
really know right now? No. And I think the Commanders are in a position where, like, yeah, Sam Howell is somebody that we can live with. He's, not the worst option in the world. There are certainly several worse options in the NFL right now. So I think you have to be thankful that they don't have one of those worse options. But, if there's a guy there that, they really, really like that has that upside, are they considering going for him? So, I
Good.
mean, it's not too much of a knock on Sam Howell. I mean, not more than we've already taken at him, but like, it's how it is.
Yeah, I think they're just in a rather weird spot at 4-8, where you've seen a lot of flashes. Obviously, they're throwing the ball a ton, so they're not able to.
Boo. Boo. Commander Stink. Boo.
They're not in a position to do much right now.
No,
They're
no, they're
not at
not.
the very bottom of the league where you start getting them at one of those top picks to target one of, for instance, the top two
Oh,
quarterbacks. Although
well,
I have
they're
to say,
close.
I don't
They're
know
very
where
close.
Drake May legitimately will look to fall. But
Or if
it's one of
Caleb
those
Williams goes back to school.
that is an entirely different conversation. But yeah, they've got things going for them. It's not consistent. It's not across the board. So they've got a lot of identity crises going on in terms of what they are and what they aren't and what they've
Well,
got.
they
So
haven't really
welcome to
settled
Commanders football, I guess.
they haven't really settled on a consistent team name in the last however so years. So I guess like they really do have the most literal identity crisis in the NFL. Regardless, the
Basically.
Cowboys at 8-3 are going to play the Seattle Seahawks, and the Commanders at 4-8 will have fun against the Miami Dolphins. Wrapping up the Thanksgiving slate, the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks. A relatively decisive victory from the Niners, 31-13. They led by 21 at the half, and by then it was kind of meh. And Christian McCaffrey led the way with a pair of TDs. Brock Purdy, he wasn't his like perfect passer rating self, but he definitely did enough to win the game for him. And if Brock Purdy keeps playing well, I've seen some narratives saying like, are we disrespecting him by not putting him in the MVP conversation?
Um, Yeah, I mean, I guess you can definitely make that argument just based on, what he's done for the team, the general numbers he's putting up, the record the team has, so on and so forth. But I don't know. For some reason, I guess it's because of the way that team operates. But Brock Purdy doesn't feel like an MVP player. He feels like a guy that does what he needs to do to put his super talented team
I
into.
I will say
If you
this.
want to make it a statistics thing and just purely based off statistics, then sure, his statistics, kind of put him somewhere along the conversation in terms of, like I said, the team record is great amongst the top 5 in the NFL. And obviously his stats are pretty solid, but I just don't know how I feel about really actually calling him an MVP
Well,
candidate.
I think we look at Brock Purdy a lot differently if he wasn't the last overall pick in the draft. Because
Yeah,
I think that has a lot to do with the way we perceive him. Because like, oh, how miraculous it is that he's continuing to play this well. And aside from those like 2 weeks where he was, turning the ball over like a
yeah.
young quarterback is prone to do from time to time, like he's been excellent. And
Yeah.
like if he's a first or a second round pick, I think we're looking at this a lot differently. But I mean, the Seattle Seahawks, they really couldn't do much. Geno Smith was hit early and often, sacked 6 times. You really got to protect him. And if you can't protect your quarterback and you can't establish much on the ground game, it's going to be a tough day. But San Francisco, there's just that much
They're
of a
still
gap.
good.
So, that comfortable lead in the NFC West is growing for the Niners at 8-3, and at 6-5. Seattle clings to the 7th seed and a wild card berth. Not for long. You got some teams right behind them that are nipping at him, and not just the Packers too. I'm talking like Rams and Saints as well. So that
Yep.
was not a Packers centric statement, believe it or not. The Niners at 8-3, they go on the road to Philadelphia. So that'll be a true test
That is going to be one hell of a game.
for both teams. And like we just
And
said,
something to keep in mind about that game, is the fact that the 49ers are actually favored on the road as of right now.
Oh,
That is something that has been very interesting to look at thus far, and we'll see how that line, continues to look as that game gets closer. But currently, the Eagles are actually underdogs at home with the better record.
definitely something to pay attention to. And the
Yeah,
Seahawks,
what
like,
does Vegas know?
yeah, what do they know? Thursday Night Football against the Cowboys for Seattle. We'll go to the Black Friday game, which an interesting concept in and of itself, ooh,
Yeah,
spooky. Not a very good game. The Dolphins are good, the Jets are not. Like, and this game was just about more so how embarrassing the Jets are than how good the Dolphins are, punctuated by that Hail Mary pick six, which is a first for me. I mean, at least Tim Boyle can say he threw a 99-yard touchdown in the NFL. I mean, it was impressive by Javon Holland to not only have the foresight to intercept it, run it back, pick up the blockers, and take it all the way in, but like, dude, where's the season going for the Jets?
that's a great question. They're
Like,
not in a very good position. They really don't have much going for them. There's obviously word now that because of the position that they're in, that Rodgers is probably not
oh
even going to make an
please,
attempt at
he's
coming
not
back.
coming back.
And that's
Stop
the
it.
thing.
Stop
They
it.
shouldn't. I'm just saying that's just what's the talk has been, given their situation, and that just it makes the most sense anyway.
I appreciate the journalistic integrity and saying, the reports are maybe Aaron Rodgers is not. No, he's not coming back. He's not
Yeah,
playing. He's gonna. And here's the thing about the Jets for the future. Like, you catered to Aaron Rodgers now, and it screwed everything up because like Aaron was bigger than the franchise. You get incompetence from Nathaniel Hackett, and all of the guys that you brought in for Rodgers from the Packers are literally derailing this season. Tim Boyle has a job just because he's friends with Aaron Rodgers and nothing else. I mean, Dalvin Cook is old and washed. So is Randall Cobb. And Alan Lazard, who you paid $12 million, was a healthy scratch. So, like, what in the world are you doing? And then it begs the question, because you're getting that top draft pick. What if Aaron wants to come back for next season? Like, are you going to go draft a top quarterback? What happens to Zach Wilson? Like, are you just going to throw him to the wayside? The Jets have so many more questions than answers. Like,
100%.
they totally screwed themselves over in this situation.
Yeah, they were so hell bent on going all in that they didn't
Yeah.
necessarily see how it could
And
backfire,
do you
and it
go
has
all in
backfired in
again?
every way imaginable.
Do you do it again? Do you double down
Yeah,
in
yeah. Do you
24?
double down or do you try to learn your lesson? Like they're
I mean,
so far in it now where it's like I don't know if they have a logical choice within their organization other
yeah.
than to double down.
We'll double down for 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off of an Achilles injury. Like, oh my goodness. Like, the Jets
I
are so
know
bad.
it's a bold take.
We didn't even talk about the Dolphins, where
Yeah.
Tua needs to play better.
So he really didn't play all that good. Obviously, this is a game where he didn't need to because the Jets are just that bad.
Mm-hmm.
But no, he did not look particularly good. So they definitely need him to clean up some of those mistakes against some of these better teams that will make them pay for it.
Yeah, and that was literally my exact same thing. Like, the better teams, like, shoot, even the Commanders might not, like, they might make mistakes, like, punishable. And the Commanders defense is just as bad, but I don't think they're that bad. But either way, Dolphins are going to keep crushing the bad teams at 8-3. They're probably going to crush the Commanders again. I don't think there's any issue with me saying that. The Jets at 4-7 with a season going down the tubes fast, they will play the Atlanta Falcons. And now that we're moving into the Sunday slate, we are going to talk about those very same Atlanta Falcons, where they won ugly against the New Orleans Saints 24-15. Wasn't pretty. You win in spite of a pair of Desmond Ridder interceptions, which, oh boy.
We're back.
Desmond. I said
We're back
there's an
to the game manager.
Look, I'm sorry that I ever said that there was an NFL starting quarterback in there somewhere. You're gonna have to keep looking. You're gonna keep looking for a while, because that take
really didn't agree with that one at the beginning, and I still don't.
No, that take is aging like milk, like old spoiled milk. The good thing about the Falcons is that they were carried by their run game. Bijan Robinson had a huge day, which allowed them to not only break the game open, but control the
Use the
clock.
dude, he does well. What a
Yeah,
concept.
like you draft a running back in the top 10, and you
A
use them,
generational one at that. Yeah.
yeah, good things happen. I will say though, on the other side, Saints offense, they didn't do much to help. Derek Carr threw a pick six, which ended up being the backbreaker. Um, ugh, geez. But with both teams sitting at 5-6, and now that the Falcons hold the tiebreaker in the NFC South for the division lead, like it's a 3-horse race. But are any one of these teams really gonna like take control, take the reins? Or is this
Oh,
just gonna be another scenario where like Tom Brady's Bucks squeak in with a bad record and then they get obliterated in the wild card? I'm probably.
yeah, it's going to be one of those situations, I think, where it just kind of comes down to those last couple of weeks and potentially even a tiebreaker of you're going to be battling three teams that have pretty bad records, because I don't see either of these teams making enough, adjustments, enough changes to really turn their season around, start stringing together, a streak of wins. None of these teams feel like they have that type of consistency in them. I could be
No.
wrong, but it sure doesn't feel like it right now. So we'll see where that takes them.
I'm
But
not
no,
gonna
this
disagree with
division
you.
is a bit of a it's a bit of a shit show.
It's a bit of a quagmire indeed. The Falcons, they go to the Jets, and the Saints play the Lions. Next up, we'll talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals, where things happen for both sides. A 16-10 victory. It underlies how the Steelers offense actually did stuff. 400 plus yards for the first time in 58 games in their first game
I
without
wonder
Matt
what the
Canada
only thing that was different about this
as
team
offensive
was.
coordinator. Coinky dink. I think not. Well, especially with a few big names that, have the talent, but we haven't really seen them utilize that well. Najee Harris and Pat
Najee Harris looked good.
Freiermuth
Yeah,
both
and Fryermuth
had
looks
good
insane.
days, and they
Yeah,
were both heavily influenced in this offensive game plan. Najee Harris almost rushes for 100 yards. Pat Freiermuth, 9 receptions, 11 targets, 120 yards. Like it looks like
crazy.
it looks like a completely different offense, even
Yeah,
with Kenny Pickett. Like Kenny Pickett looks okay, and Kenny Pickett is not an okay quarterback.
I
Like
would agree with you on that one.
like the
I'd
Steelers
say the only
they're gonna
blemish on
need to
this
do
game.
better.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because to me the only blemish on this game is you had some of those big performances from those guys and still only managed to put up 16 points. Obviously, though, it's improvement, it's movement in the right direction. But I guess it surprises me that you get 100 yards and a touchdown out
Well,
of Najee and 120 yards out of Pat Freiermuth, and you still only get 16 points. But
look, this is the Steelers we're talking about. It's not like you're gonna fire Matt Canada and suddenly this is the reincarnation of the greatest show on turf with, but
yeah, there was a lot to be excited about in terms of the turnaround, the quick turnaround of the Steelers offense. For anyone out there that are Steelers fans watching this game, because it's like, obviously the Bengals offense is going to continue to struggle with Jake Browning at quarterback, but they were still able to actually take advantage of parts of the Bengals defense.
look, for Pittsburgh, step in the right direction. Congratulations. 1.5 thumbs up, because you're not all the way there yet. But like you said, on the other side, the Bengals are cooked. They're so cooked.
Yeah,
I'm
what do you
sure
do?
Jake Browning is a nice kid, but like this whole offense falls apart without Joe Burrow. Like the run game was atrocious.
Yeah,
Jamar
horrible.
Chase is almost non-existent, it seems like. And I think the perfect saying to describe the Bengals, we saw it in 2020, it's you don't know how hot it is until your shade tree is gone. And Joe Burrow was that shade tree. And, it can be a blessing in disguise going forward for next year if you
Well, because it
realize that,
shows they
like,
need to patch a whole lot in this team
yes.
that isn't the quarterback position when Joe
Mm-hmm.
Burrow is healthy.
Yeah.
Because there's so much of this team that is just glaring holes that, as you said, everything falls apart as soon as you don't have Joe Burrow. Which,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at the rest of this team, you still have talent in a decent amount of places. It should not be this bad. It
No,
shouldn't be. Which
absolutely not.
clearly shows that there's changes that need to be made.
Yeah. And the Bengals, like, it'll show them that, hey, we need to get better in certain areas, but it also shows them how lucky they are to have a guy like Joe Burrow as their franchise quarterback. And I think it also reaffirms the decision to make him one of the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. So
They need him.
Yes, they do. And until they get him back, they're just going to fade into the distance, and this season's
Keep
going to be a
floundering.
wash. And, at 5-6, going to Jacksonville on Monday Night Football, I don't see how this gets any better. And Pittsburgh, on the other hand, they're at 7-4, and they're going to play Arizona, and they keep finding a way to win games. And Mike Tomlin's going to do it again. He's going to go over 500. It's going to happen.
Anger.
Accept it. They may make the playoffs with Kenny Pickett at quarterback. Like,
that's crazy.
Oh, good.
That's like the Patriots with rookie Mac Jones.
That is an excellent comparison, but we are going to move right along to arguably the worst game of the week, which is ironic because this game had one more point than the game we previously talked about. The Carolina Panthers and the Tennessee Titans. Titans win 17-10. Oh boy. We're going to start with Tennessee just because there's less to talk about there.
At least they won.
They move on to 4-7. Will Levis is exactly who we thought he was. He is not the franchise guy, in my humble opinion. He's doing his best. But when
they don't win this game without Derrick Henry. That's when
Derrick Henry in the run game is the safety blanket, then they got it going. Great. You can beat bad teams, but Will Levis ain't the answer. Telling you that right now, which Tannehill, no. Malik Willis, God, no. So I guess you might as well see if
they're going through they're going through their ring of QBs, and as of right now, none of them look like the answer. No. Could we see a horrendously bad team draft a quarterback for the third year in a row?
Bo Nix, you are a Tennessee Titan. Why the hell not? And
it's crazy, but
for the Panthers, for the Panthers, they completely screwed themselves over. Oh my God,
so bad.
1-10. Frank Reich collecting checks from teams he doesn't coach for anymore.
Second year in a row getting fired. That's crazy,
dude.
You get another opportunity, and you don't even last a year. You were so bad that they fired you. And I remember mid-season.
We were just saying that like what are the odds Frank Reich gets the axe? And you're like, no, there's no way. There's no way he gets fired. Well, look how wrong we were about that. And the Panthers mortgaged their future on Bryce Young because David Tepper ignored Frank Reich and Josh McCown when they clearly thought that CJ Stroud was the guy. And guess what? He is. And if the Panthers don't take Bryce Young and take CJ Stroud, the Bears don't have the number 1 overall pick. So you can thank your lucky stars for that one. As a Bears fan, you better be thanking David Tepper for his absolute incompetence.
He can keep being as incompetent as he wants.
Look, it's going to stay.
Does not bother me.
Bad owners are bad owners, and bad owners are going to make bad football teams long term. So there's really not much they can do other than just trust the process and pray. Find Jesus. Find Tom Cruise. Find anybody because Panthers football ain't it. Find Cam Newton. What's he doing?
He's doing a whole lot of nothing. But for the Panthers, I think right now their best choice is literally just like you said, it's hope and pray in the development of Bryce Young. Obviously, he's not there right now.
Gosh.
I will say there's probably some of it to be said about the coaching staff and utilizing a rookie quarterback. And we'll see what differences come in the post Frank Reich era. You see, what adjustments they try to do for the rest of the season. I don't envision it'll be pretty, but maybe it might be at least a little bit better.
I don't know if it's even going to do that because who's going to want to take the job?
That's a great question. Jeff Saturday?
Maybe. Who is taking this Carolina Panthers job that they are not going to get a good coach, unless they throw $1 million bajillion at Ben Johnson or something. But
yeah, it's going to be interesting to pay attention to and watch.
At 1-10, they're going to Tampa to play the Buccaneers, and the Titans at 4-7 have a divisional matchup against the Colts, where let's talk about both of these teams because they played the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, lost to the Indianapolis Colts 27-20. And the Colts have found a winning formula, and they are 6-5 and currently the 7th seed in the AFC. And there's a very real chance that Gardner Minshew could sneak into the playoffs. And I am absolutely here for it, because the irony of Anthony Richardson throwing himself at a brick wall like time and time again, and then Minshew mania, he deserves to be a starter. I've said it over and over and over again. Give Gardner a starting job, especially with how bad the quarterback play is in the NFL right now. But I digress. Jonathan Taylor had a big day, 15 carries, 91 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But at what cost? He has an injury that will keep him out for at least a few weeks. He is getting surgery on it. So that's a big loss, at least for the Colts, because he has been the key cog in that winning formula, and he has absolutely earned that big payday now that he's in rhythm. And, this injury just knocks him right back out of it. So, I mean, we'll see how the Colts handle things on the precipice of the playoffs. And on the other side for the Buccaneers, I guess it's just, too little, too late. You didn't make enough plays to win the game. It's like, oh well.
Yeah, for the Bucs, it's kind of just it's another tale as old as time for them in terms of coming up just short, because they haven't looked terrible in almost any of their games that they've played, but they just don't look good enough to beat most teams.
Mediocre.
Yes, they have been strikingly mediocre. I would say the only thing that really has been the bright spot for that team has been the emergence of Rachaad White. He has done well being the leader in that backfield in this
Rachaad
game.
White is fun. I like Rachaad
15
White.
carries for 100 yards. I mean, that's a very solid performance, and obviously we know that he can do some work in the receiving game as well. But the connection with receivers to Baker just hasn't really seemed like it's there. The defense hasn't really stepped up in ways that they would have hoped. So they're going to keep sitting right around at that couple games below 500 level without some serious changes, which I don't know what you do to this team to change anything.
And I think the sad thing about it is, like, at 4-7, the NFC South is still winnable somehow. So every single game counts. Like, it's kind of a crisscross of our 2 predictions from earlier in the season. I'm like, oh, the Buccaneers are going to be like, they're going to stink. They're maybe going to win like 5 games. You're like, they could be pretty good and like maybe sneak into the playoffs. Turns out,
technically they could still maybe.
Both things can technically be true at the same time.
They can still suck and win a stupidly low amount of games and still maybe win the NFC South.
And I hate everything about it. The Buccaneers have a divisional matchup against the Panthers, and like I said previously, the Colts go to Tennessee to play the Texans. Up next, the Patriots and the Giants.
Yeah, let's just say you said, worst game of the week earlier. I think we found our worst game of the week. I am so tired of watching the Patriots play football. I gotta be honest. And the Giants are much better.
Yeah, I think I take that back. This game was terrible. This game's awful. No good. Very bad. So much pain. Tommy DeVito plays it and wins.
And Mac Jones and Bailey Zapp combined from
the Patriots don't have a quarterback. They don't have a quarterback. Neither one of these guys will be on the Patriots roster next year, and it is because the Patriots have invested a high draft pick, probably on Drake May.
Yeah, most likely.
Like, going back to the whole Caleb Williams thing.
We'll see where that goes, but in terms of I'm
going to be looking forward to talking about draft season, because imagine if both
100%.
Dude, if Caleb Williams and Marvin Harrison go back to school, because both of them might, but that's neither here nor there.
There's the possibility.
Yeah.
It's all crazy stuff. Literally the only thing the Patriots had going for them this game, and the only reason they got points on the board, was that Ramondre Stevenson looked pretty good, which is good news for them, except bad news. They have literally nothing else.
Absolutely. Well, no. Demario Douglas.
Yeah, Demario Douglas isn't anything. He doesn't have a quarterback to throw it to him. Demario Douglas could be decent if Demario Douglas had a quarterback that could, put him in a chance or in a place to be a decent receiver. 6 receptions, 49 yards. Cool. But what else is that going to do? I mean, they found the end zone once. You're not going to beat teams like that. I don't care if your defense is good, which their defense hasn't been very good. They just, they got they were in the game because the Giants offense is also
Both
that
of
bad.
these teams are cooked. Hey, at least Tommy DeVito's fun. At least he's fun. That's all
He's
I got.
something.
That's all I know. He's not something. He's fun. And that is the
He is something fun.
he is something fun. I'm not gonna lie, some Giants fans already forgot about Daniel Jones and Tyrod Taylor.
They're just all in on on Tommy DeVito. I almost said
I'm
Danny DeVito, and that would have been hilarious. Put him out there next.
Dimes DeVito. Hey, the passing paisano, Dimes DeVito. I think we made something there. But the thankful part for the Giants is they have a bye.
Ooh,
Hallelujah.
can't lose.
They can't lose on a bye. The Patriots, however, they have to play football, those unlucky souls, and they get to play Justin Herbert and the Chargers. So they have a better chance of winning than everybody else might think because it's the Chargers.
And you never know with the Chargers.
Oh my goodness. The Chargers, man. Next up, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Houston Texans, a burgeoning AFC South rivalry. It's blossoming
So it's
into
a battle.
the premier matchup to watch in this division. It absolutely was a battle. The Jaguars came out victorious 24-21, back and forth all game. And until the bitter end, Matt Amendola tried the 58-yard game tying field goal and doink. But the main storyline here, of course, the quarterbacks, the young quarterbacks that are both so super talented, Trevor Lawrence and CJ Stroud, going blow for blow, carrying their teams. And there's really not much to say about those two other than they're going to be very, very good for a long, long time. I'm happy for both of these franchise that they have finally found that franchise guy. And, you know, there are bright spots on both offenses, including Calvin Ridley, Christian Kirk. They both had good games. On the other side, Tank Dell continues to be a beast, but Nico Collins was just a bit better. Also, haha, you're zoomed out. Sucks to be you.
Yeah, well, that's just how my day is going.
Technical difficulties aside, what do you have on this matchup, Tim?
I mean, it was really a back and forth one. Obviously Trevor Lawrence threw the ball for 368 yards, so they had the ball moving all around the field.
It's a lot of
It was good.
yards.
Yeah, it was good to see them really spread it around between a lot of different targets because that's where we've seen throughout a lot of this where they haven't necessarily gotten too many of their targets going. We talk about two in, one out type thing. This time, I mean, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 guys over 40 receiving yards. So they were really all over the field. But I am more, intrigued by the Texans. Obviously, they've been a super, super fun team to watch. Obviously, they come up short here. But Tank Dell continues to be extremely fun to watch. He had a crazy catch that actually got called back. So he would have had even more yards than he did. But overall, like both of these teams look good. Both of these teams are going to continue to, play well. At least I sure think so. And really compete with a lot of these teams in the AFC. But, the Jaguars come out on top in this one. They still look like, a very competitive team in this AFC now at 8-3. So we'll see where it takes them. They seem to have caught their stride in terms of some of the issues that they had earlier on in the season. It's just a matter of, what guys can they get going on any given day.
Absolutely. 8-3, Kings of the AFC South, which is a lot closer of a battle than both of us certainly expected. And they have the Bengals on Monday Night Football. Meanwhile, the 6-5 Houston Texans play the red hot Denver Broncos next week. Speaking of
That's
which,
quite a sentence.
the Denver Broncos win their 5th straight and advance to 6-5 after starting 1-5. And it's not because Russ cooked. It is not because Mr. Unlimited has played well. Mr. Unlimited has been very limited with his abilities. It's been the defense that has been the game changer. The ability to force takeaways. Granted, Dorian Thompson-Robinson and PJ Walker do a little bit more harm than good at quarterback for the Browns, and that's going to be a problem if they're going to compete in this conference. But Oh God, I'm dying. It's still impressive nonetheless for the
The
Broncos.
Browns quarterback play just makes you sick.
Dude, the Browns are killing me, man.
It's not too fun to watch. This one really was just a battle of two very good defenses, and what it came down to is, the Browns offense made more mistakes that helped the Broncos defense really, make a difference in this one.
I'm not sick. I just ate spicy food for dinner right before this. So, it's kind of catching up with me. For the Browns, I think I'm more concerned about the injury bug that really
Yeah,
bit them. Dorian Thompson-Robinson missed some time. Myles Garrett came away with an injury on his shoulder. He was in a sling. Amari Cooper didn't finish the game. Denzel Ward picked up a few more injuries. Like, those are key guys.
yeah,
And, like, can't overstate enough, like, how much every game counts in this conference. And they're still in a
and in
pretty
that
good
division.
spot. They're still in a pretty good spot at 7-4. Like, you still control your own destiny in terms of, like, if you win games, you stay in a good position. But,
Yeah,
it's about winning those games. And on the other side for Denver, like, they're knocking on the door of the playoffs, and like their wins are more gritty than pretty, but winning ugly
yeah,
is a skill too. Like,
yeah.
I don't just say this about football teams. I say this about life. The great ones find a way. And whether that be talking about the Denver Broncos, I understand calling them great is a little bit of a stretch, but the principle of, like, these teams that just scrap and claw and find a way to get it done, there's really something to be said, especially with the stretch of schedule that the Broncos have had. These teams that they've been able to topple on this run, like, looking back, like, none of them are bad. Kansas City, Minnesota, they beat Buffalo, like Green Bay is even playing that's where this win streak started. So, hey, you're welcome. Um, and now Cleveland, like, this has been mighty impressive, and they have a chance to do it again against the Texans next week.
Yeah, I mean it's been very interesting to watch because it does not feel like a team that should have won 5 games straight. But it's just one of those things where the pieces are falling at the right time and even in the right places in a lot of these games. For the Browns, it's just tough because we've seen them win some of these
Mm-hmm.
tougher games when their defense steps up. I really am, as you said, worried about that injury bug, especially with somebody like Myles Garrett leaving in the sling there. He said he felt a pop in his shoulder, which is never a good sign. And they're going to do more scans on to try to figure out if he's going to have to miss significant time. He tried to play through it, but he didn't do much during the game because he just couldn't move that arm very much. So if they continue to lose more of these key guys, it doesn't really matter how good their defense should be. You lose some of your key personnel, and you'll find some glaring holes, especially with guys like Myles Garrett that just garner so much attention on that defensive line. They just elevate the play of everybody else because they take so much attention.
We'll see how they respond next week at LA with the Rams. Speaking of those Rams, they demolished the Arizona Cardinals 37-14, led by Matthew Stafford and Kyren Williams back from the IR. Kyren Williams with a pair of touchdowns in the receiving game and over 200 yards from scrimmage, and Matthew Stafford with 4 touchdowns of his own. So, a very impressive offensive showing for the Rams, but there's always two sides to every coin, because where did Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua go?
Yeah, they were just non-factors in this game, which is really weird
Where
for this
did they
offense.
go, man?
To be fair, when Kyron is playing as well as he was, they certainly didn't need to try to stuff those guys with targets. But at the
No.
same time, to win games convincingly, they obviously won this one convincingly, but against better teams, the teams that I would consider to be much more competitive than the Cardinals, they're going to need to be able to take advantage of those two guys and their talent.
Yeah.
We've seen them do it time and time again throughout the season, but for them to go completely blank in this one, or seemingly completely blank, with Puka going 4 for 27 and Cooper Kupp going 3 for 18, it's very, very weird for that offense. In theory, I guess you can't really complain when they put up 37 points, but this can't start being a consistent thing for them because it is not a winning formula for them going forward. Even though Stafford does throw for 4 touchdowns, 2 of them were to Kyren Williams, which is like, okay, I mean, whether those were on the ground or in the air, I wouldn't necessarily say that would immediately means that Stafford had, a world-beating game in the air, but 229 and 4 touchdowns kind of speaks for itself with the one interception. I don't know. It was very weird to see. We'll see if it kind of keeps a similar pattern going forward, if it was really just a weird hiccup in terms of matchups and how they chose to play their receivers and which guys feasted because of it.
And especially like looking forward, the Rams at 5-6, they're sitting at the 9th seed in the NFC, which makes that Brett Rippon loss to the Packers hurt all that much more, because that is the tiebreaker. And it doesn't get any easier. I mean, Cleveland seems winnable now, especially with all these injuries, like what we just said about them. But, you never really know. And, we haven't said a darn thing about the Cardinals. That's just because they're bad and we don't really need to say anything more. And that's okay.
They're just not going anywhere.
That's okay. And that's just the reality of the situation. At 2-10, they're probably going to go to Pittsburgh and lose anyway. But we have more games to cover. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Las Vegas Raiders. The Chiefs ended up coming from behind 31-17. The 3-game second half offensive slump is over. Patrick Mahomes rallied his guys, woke them up, and they really came on as the game went on. Still not all the way back. Still have your struggles. Still a closer game than theoretically you'd want to see. But, dude, Aiden O'Connell played really, really, really well, given what he was working with. So you got to tip your cap to Mr. AOC. I see you, my guy. I see you. There was hope for the Raiders to win, but never really anything more than that as the game progressed.
Yeah, I think this was one of those where it's like the Chiefs just really outpaced them and kind of showed, where their prowess lies, especially on the offensive side of the ball, because the Raiders did not play bad. Obviously, they would have liked to put up more than 17. But I mean, for AOC to play as solid of a game as he did, and he did play pretty darn well given the circumstances, and for them to get Josh Jacobs to rush for 110 yards and a touchdown. Overall, you can't ask for a ton more other than you want your defense to be able to step up. But against a team like the Chiefs, I mean, obviously the Chiefs have had some struggles more recently, but they're still the Chiefs at the end of the day. This is still more of what you expect than some of the other ones and what we've seen. So I think overall for the Raiders, from what I've seen, is they want to, keep trying to test AOC going forward and keep running with him, see what he can do.
Might as well.
I think. Yeah, and I think that he's shown that he can continue to build on some of the success that he's had, and as he continues to get more and more comfortable with the guys around him and what that offensive scheme looks like with him at the quarterback, I think he has a chance to continue to blossom further and further. We'll have to see where it goes for them.
Aiden O'Connell is not the worst quarterback that Devontae Adams has ever played with.
Definitely not.
He had games with Brett Hundley. So,
And Jimmy Garoppolo.
I just want to give a vote of confidence for Aiden O'Connell. But, we got to move on. The Chiefs at 8-3 will drop to 8-4 when they go to Lambeau and lose on Sunday Night Football. And the Vegas Raiders, they have the bye. Dude, it's coming. Why do you keep facepalming every single time? Like, you should expect.
It's painful every time.
Well,
it just makes me hurt.
That's okay. I'm fine with it when I'm right. The next game we have the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles in an absolute thriller. One of the best games of the weekend. The overtime classic 37-34 win. The Eagles keep finding ways to win. They're 10-1, and next week a playoff berth clincher is on the horizon. But for this week, Jalen Hurts didn't start great, absolutely turned it on, 5 total touchdowns. And when they needed him most, he was clutch. He was fantastic. MVP frontrunner. I don't know. I've seen too many Hurts love stat comparisons to be totally sold on that. Call me brainwashed. I don't care. I've seen what I've seen. Propaganda works, people. Jake Elliott's 59-yard field goal in the rain and in the cold is the most impressive kick I have seen this season and in a long time.
He is legit.
He is that dude, ice in his veins. And then Sean McDermott makes the weird decision with 20 seconds left and a timeout to take a knee and play for overtime. Didn't work, but that is one of the decisions of all time. The Bills were absolutely carried by Josh Allen. He threw the ball 51 times, but he had over 410 yards of total offense by himself, displayed those dual threat qualities, even if he did throw an interception and leads the NFL in picks, blah, 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 blah. The only thing that Bills fans care about at the end of the day is whether they won or whether they lost. And they lost. And they're at 6-6,
Yeah.
which is dangerous because now you're on par and behind teams like the Colts and the Texans and the Broncos, which
It's crazy.
would have absolutely been unfathomable. Remember last year, like in the 2022 season, when I made the comparison of the Broncos being better than the Bills and it aging absolutely terribly. I was ahead of my time. I was a year
Yeah.
early.
Yeah,
I
you're
was
just a year early on some of your takes
I
there.
was truly a prophet of a time long gone by. They weren't ready for what I have to bring to the table yet in terms of my foresight. Let me just crystal ball. Packers are Super Bowl champions. All right, let me get that out of the way. So,
I'm glad you got that out of your system.
dude, it's gonna happen. Got a Super Bowl. But
Hey, for all I can say is
but
this
what
game
about the,
was
the the Bills? The Bills at 6-6, got to turn it around.
to me they just have to put more pieces together because they put certain pieces together to compete in, a game as good as this one. But
Such as
combining offense and defense. I mean, this game, the offense shines. I get that you can't expect your defense to truly limit an offense as good as the Eagles, but we've seen the Eagles get limited on various occasions this season. Obviously, you see Jalen Hurts didn't start well, but I mean they sort of allowed them to storm back in. At least you can make that argument. But again, it's like competing is not good enough for the talent that they have on their roster. We've been here year in and year out of the Bills being, a very good football team and people having the expectation of them and them just falling short. Usually it's been in the playoffs. Right now we're seeing it more in the regular
oh,
season.
but we're not
So
surprised.
no, I mean, I can't say I'm that surprised, but at the same time, like I understand the frustration of Bills Mafia. Essentially being like, what do you do with this team anymore? What more can you do to change things up, to bring things in, to make things different? I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, but I will say that the bye week comes at the perfect time because that's what it is for the Bills. You can't lose on a bye week. And the Eagles at 10-1 are underdogs against the 49ers, which you pointed out.
Eagles are lining up to very possibly play in 2 game of the weeks back to back.
Interesting. We have 2 more to go. The Sunday night game between the Ravens and the Chargers. This was more about the defense, forced a lot of turnovers from Justin Herbert and company, more so in the fumble realm and not in the interception realm, even though Herbert did have a pick. With the Ravens, it was just a nice blend of passing and running. They were almost even in terms of yardage. Lamar Jackson didn't need to do too much. It was the Zay Flowers breakout game, both a touchdown through the air and on the ground. He is looking absolutely electric and make that Quentin Johnston pick look that much more stupid. But
Yeah.
it's a shame. But the Chargers keep finding ways to lose. This time it was sloppy play and turnovers. And, this team theoretically has far too much talent to be playing this poorly. But when it's the norm, you just kind of like throw up your arms and go, whatever.
Yeah, I mean it's
Do,
gotten to
do
the
your
point where
thing.
this is expected. And obviously we know the Ravens are a very, very good football team. So it's not that surprising that the Ravens came out with the win in this one. But obviously when you talk about Ravens are without Mark Andrews. Obviously, Isaiah Likely stepped up pretty decently in his absence with 4 receptions for 40 yards. Not really a Mark Andrews type stat line, but obviously they still want to use that tight end position plenty. But yeah, to me, again, this game is more about what the Chargers do to shoot themselves in the foot rather than what the Ravens did to beat them. We know how good the Ravens' run game is. They didn't need to do a ton in the pass game because, again, the Chargers do what they do. And I'm still waiting on the Brandon Staley firing announcement. I'm, another one of the coaches where it just feels like I'm preying on his downfall. But I like, a lot of the guys that are on the Chargers roster, and I'm tired of seeing the Chargers be as bad as they are. I want to see them change something up.
I think they need to. They definitely need a head coaching change. And I mean, This is a perfect bounce back week at New England against a Patriots team that is really, really, really
Oh boy,
bad.
they better.
But the Ravens going into the bye week are actually at 9-3 and the number one seed in the AFC as of
Yeah.
right now, which is kind of unbelievable given how many good teams there have proven to be. But we'll go to our final game. And I know, Tim, you have many, many opinions on this.
Oh boy.
I love how that's your reaction after a win. The
I
Chicago
know, but it's
Bears,
just such a weird game.
the Chicago Bears go play the Minnesota Vikings and win 12-10, which I'm just going to say this from a fan that hates both of these teams. This was the perfect scenario because all the Bears winning does is just help out the Packers. So thank you for that. But I'm just going to let you take the floor, dude. Go for it.
It's a very, very weird game. If you look at some of the stat lines throughout the game, the Bears are back to their loving screen passes days. They don't seem to want to throw the ball downfield very much. Thank you, Luke Getsy. The rushing game really was mostly just Justin Fields. They couldn't get a ton going on the ground between Roshan Johnson and Khalil Herbert. I think the thing to watch for me is the fact that, yes, so they ended up with 4 field goals. They could not find the end zone. And why is Justin Fields so bad at ball security? There's two late possessions there trying to drive down the field that he just is extremely careless with how he's holding the ball, and it just pops out stupid easily. That kind of blew my mind because for a guy that runs so often, you'd think that he would know better to be more secure running with the ball. But he wasn't, and that's part of the reason why what made this as close as it was. Really, their only saving grace is the fact that they got 4 interceptions on Josh Dobbs. Granted, I will say I don't blame Josh Dobbs for many of those interceptions. I think 1 out of those 4 was really a bad decision. And that was the one where sort of the throw out of sack interception.
There
2 of them are
some quarterbacks, NFL quarterbacks and analysts that would agree with you. Thanks, Kirk Benkert. He was really defending Josh Dobbs after this game, and it's like, okay, all right, you know.
And that's the
sure.
thing, and I see it from what I saw on all of those plays.
Like, it makes
2
sense.
of those, you have the 2 tipped interceptions where, I mean,
can't really
some
do
of
much
it's
on a
putting
tip
the
drill.
Yes, some of it's just the luck of the draw of where the ball gets tipped. Some of it you could say, okay, maybe you shouldn't try to fit it in as tight of a window. Sure. I think the Jalen Johnson interception was just a fantastic play by him to really abandon his assignment and jump back towards the sideline to make that interception. So overall, I see that stat line and say, cool your jets on Josh Dobbs slander, because I don't think he actually did that bad. But it's more tells me that the Bears are that bad because they got 4 interceptions and still won the game by 2 and couldn't find the end zone.
Yeah. 2 thumbs up for the defense. Yeah, you did good. You didn't lose. Back to Justin Fields. Let me offer a take from a known Justin Fields hater, right? Justin Fields cooked. Not a very good NFL quarterback, at least in a Chicago Bears uniform. He needs desperately a change of scenery for him to unlock whatever potential he has left. Or maybe Nagy, Eberflus, and Getsy just killed it all. And that's very, very possible. Because you say that the Bears are back to screen passes. Oh boy, are they ever. 50% of Justin Fields' attempts were behind the line of scrimmage.
That's just insane. This is an NFL team we're talking about here.
That shows me 2 things, right? And both can be true at the same time. A, Luke Getsy is a moron. Thanks, Aaron Rodgers, for getting him a job. And B, they don't trust Justin Fields to throw the ball down the field. They still don't.
Which is what's so weird though, because some of the Bears' best plays in that game was when they went to go drive to get down in field goal range, and Justin Fields darts it over the middle to DJ Moore for like a 27-yard reception or something like that.
Let's cool your jets on a wide open wobbly throw that he just kind of.
But here's the thing: why are they not trying that more? If you've got a guy like DJ Moore that still in a horrible game gets 11 receptions for 114 yards. why would you not try that more? The only success that they've had this year is when they've embraced that connection
I
and
think
just
you
tried to
know the
force the ball to him
answer.
more.
You know the answer of why they don't do that more.
See, my answer is that Luke Getsy needs to get the hell out of there because I don't understand what he's attempting to do anymore.
You think?
I was tired of Eberflus from day one. I was tired of Eberflus before he even walked onto the field. I never wanted him because I knew he wasn't
No,
going
you
to
did
be an
not.
answer for this team, and it's proven to be glaringly obvious. So, I mean, they need to make some type of coaching change, but I also do agree with you actually at this point that if Justin Fields wants to get whatever it is out of his career, it's not going to be with the Bears anymore. I still think that he has talent, and again, I think he
Sure.
shows flashes of it.
Sure.
I think he needs to make leaps and bounds in the passing game, but his athleticism alone makes him worthy of chances elsewhere, especially as you've talked about the level of quarterback play that we see around the league with a lot of these guys, and at least when certain guys go down with injuries. So I think that he does belong, getting a chance somewhere else. But I think the Bears need to do so much of a scrap that they need to move along or move on from him. That's the words I'm looking for.
Please, please,
Especially with the
please
fact that the
draft
Bears are
Caleb
lining up.
Williams.
And that's what I'm saying, especially with them having the first overall pick, whatever they want to do
Please,
with that, whether
please
they
draft
trade
that
out of it
absolute
again.
man child that is Caleb Williams, because you will ruin him too.
I honestly don't doubt it.
All right. I mean, look, Caleb Williams is really talented, but he's a
Oh,
mental
super.
midget. He will
Yeah,
not survive in Chicago.
no,
So,
I don't really like the way that he's handled a lot of things already in his college career. So
congratulations, Caleb Williams. You are a Chicago Bear.
it's
But
very possible.
one more thing about Justin Fields, and I know I've referenced this maybe a few times, the whole saying about how Johnny can't read. Yeah, dude, Johnny's just illiterate. He has terrible teachers, man. He needs new teachers.
Yeah,
So
he does. I think he just I think he really does need a better system that can truly grow him as a quarterback. I don't
welcome
think the
to
Bears can do that.
welcome to backing up Desmond Ritter in Atlanta
Oh, God. He's backing up Desmond Ritter. Ugh.
until like week 4.
Yeah, exactly. Until they get tired of senior game manager.
Fair enough. You know what? You can't lose during the bye week, and that's exactly what both of these teams have coming up. And that's going to wrap it up. What a week of football this was. What a time to be alive. This season is shaping up to be one of the more interesting ones that we've seen in a long, long time. But we've done recaps through every other week. So if you want to watch those, we have them up on the channel, as well as other NFL content and other sports content. College basketball is here. It is in full swing and it is awesome. We will be talking about it. Tim will be excited with probably Boom Buster Believable. In fact, I would almost count on it because I know how much you love doing that. So stay tuned for that and so much more. But if you want more from us, like and subscribe. And until next time, we out. Jeez, that was a long episode.
Why did I get zoomed out?